The Shadow Protocol. The Silent Monday. My name is Ellis Grant, 52 years old, lead systems engineer at Aurelian Dynamics, a technology corporation headquartered in Denver. I haven't needed an alarm clock for 17 years. My internal body clock wakes me at 5:37 a.m. every morning. Brew the coffee, turn off the alarm, check company email before even switching on the kitchen lights. But something felt off that Monday. Not the coffee, not the Wi-Fi. It was a strange email from Freya Quinn, Director of Human Resources. Ellis, please come to the meeting room on the 19th floor at 8:30 a.m. Leadership wants to speak with you privately. No subject, no explanation, no usual signature block. I read it 4 times. My heart didn't race. It just dropped half a beat, as if my body already knew. This was a system alert. 8:29 a.m. I entered the glass-walled meeting room with drawn gray curtains. 3 people were already seated. Freya, Benedict Stiles, the legal director, and the third, Leo Trask, recently appointed CEO less than 6 months ago. Ellis, have a seat, Leo said, avoiding eye contact. No small talk, no coffee offered, no polite framing. Leo handed me a black folder. On the cover, Technical Division Leadership Restructure, Internal Confidential. We've reassessed strategy and decided to eliminate your position. I didn't ask why. I'd seen the early signs. My admin root access was quietly downgraded a month ago. Monday technical meetings had turned into strategic briefings. I was no longer invited. Emails I once vetted now bypassed me, rerouted to someone younger, less experienced, but more aligned. I simply said, I understand. I'll pack my things today. Work area, 9:02 a.m. I entered. No one spoke. Eyes averted. I carefully placed items into a box. A ceramic mug reading Fixer of Everything. A framed photo of my daughter at graduation. A little aloe plant that survived 9 Denver winters. I didn't need to log out of email. I had encrypted the system 3 years ago. Anyone trying to bypass that layer would need the Layer 7 token. Only I possessed it. As I stood to leave, no one stopped me. But I knew someone was watching. Leo Trask stood shadowed in the hallway, eyes locked on me, like I might smuggle a server out in my bare hands. In the car, 10:17 a.m. I didn't drive straight home. I pulled into a gas station, cleaned the windshield, and inserted a USB into my personal laptop. What was on it? The Shadow Protocol, a covert surveillance system I had quietly developed, designed to guard against exactly this kind of betrayal. Data outside the handbook. I got home before noon, not hungry, not tired, just strangely weightless. The house was unusually quiet. Andrea, my wife, was out. She usually teaches yoga on Monday mornings. I powered up an old ThinkPad in my office, a secondary server I had modified at the BIOS level to run fully independent, disconnected from Wi-Fi. In my hand was one of 3 USB drives with embedded encryption chips, each containing separate layers of data I'd accumulated over the past decade. Why? Because I had witnessed a major scandal in 2015 when Aurelian nearly collapsed due to a defense contract fraud. Back then, I was asked to build an internal monitoring system and was granted deep access to prevent recurrence. They forgot to revoke that access. I began searching the way I always had. Hidden files, access logs, traces of privilege escalations, the kind of data that never appears in formal reports. Then I saw a strange execution string, TX093 transfer, Victoria CR. Victoria CR was a module I had written 7 years ago, a tool for testing data integrity during inter-system transfers. No one used it anymore, but recently it had been activated 3 times. The last time, from Leo Trask's account, the new CEO. I froze for 3 seconds. When I inspected the data stream triggered by that execution, I discovered attached files involving payment records, 12 invoices for a vendor called Helix Point Consulting. The amounts rose steadily over several months, from $45,000 to nearly $200,000 in just half a year. I traced the company code. Helix Point was registered in Delaware using a virtual address. The legal owner listed was Ronan Trask, Leo's half-brother. At that moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt confirmation. If I were siphoning money from a corporation, I'd do it the exact same way. I downloaded all relevant data onto my secondary machine, applied SHA-256 hashes to each file, triple encrypted everything, generated a summary file in plain text. I wasn't rushing. Impatience rarely survives long in this world. I opened the internal email recipient directory, filtered for the top 15 recipients of Leo's memos containing the keyword restructuring. Among them was Madeline Stroud, Chief Financial Officer, known for her silence and distaste for engineers. Then it clicked. I hadn't been pushed aside because I was old. I was pushed aside because I was the only one who could connect the dots. I didn't act immediately. I needed more confirmation. A portion of data wasn't enough. I needed transaction behavior logs, email archives, and approval workflows, accessed only by top-level executives. Luckily, I still had a key, a built-in protocol I had designed for verifying financial compliance in audit reports. The Shadow Protocol, a nameless integrity test embedded deep in the system. I was the one who built it, and now I was going to use it to trace every single footprint. The off-grid data vault. I stayed up all night, not out of worry, but from adrenaline, the thrill of hunting through lines of code, chasing ghosts in a desert of data. I activated the Shadow Protocol, the hidden monitoring layer embedded within the internal financial audit system since 2016. It ran silently, left no logs, triggered no alerts. It simply recorded. The activation key was a sequence by shadow.run I-147. Exactly 43 seconds later, the first dashboard appeared, a plain terminal-like interface, but beneath it lay every anomalous access attempt from the past 6 months. 3 high-level administrator accounts had modified budget approvals exceeding $100,000, with no attached meeting notes or signed requests. Leo.trask@aurelian.com, CEO. mstroud@aurelian.com, CFO. Javier.kent@aurelian.com, Head of Internal Audit. Javier had once been a stickler for compliance, and now he was signing off on Helix Point payments with zero due diligence. I downloaded the full access trails to a virtual machine. Every line, every timestamp, every file modified was hashed and indexed. I compared it against the official monthly financial report and uncovered a $725,000 payment it labeled CRM system integration. CRM. I was the one who implemented Salesforce in-house. No one had authorized any replacements without going through the tech division. I found contract CR 2219 signed between Aurelian and Helix Point. The listed representative was someone named Carla Denson, Systems Implementation Specialist. I searched for her on LinkedIn. No results. Google? Just a few name drops in low-quality PR blog posts. The contract signing address? A leased mailbox in suburban Austin, Texas. I kept digging into internal banking records. Every payment followed the same pattern. Request from Technical Division. Approved by Internal Audit. Finalized by the CFO. But none of these originated from my team. All were generated by a secondary user account named UserTemp19, unlinked to any official group or role within the access hierarchy. It was a ghost account, created as an intermediary. A toggle switch, then gone. I mapped the entire approval flow, every actor, every action, every timestamp, into a visual web, black and white printouts posted all over the wall behind my desk. Andrea walked in at 6:40 a.m. "What are you doing?" she asked softly. I looked at her and said calmly, "Piecing together a case no one else believes exists. The dark side of a revolution." Every internal newsletter called Leo Trask a fresh breeze, a young, sharp, decisive CEO, the one who brought startup culture into a 40-year-old corporation. I used to think that was just cheap PR, but now I realize it was also a perfect cover. The digital revolution Leo preached was a convenient justification to legitimize all kinds of expenses, from strategic consulting, tech platform migrations, to change management training. But behind those glossy labels lay a string of contracts with no deliverables, no real vendors. And I knew that because I had been in charge of those very projects for the past 15 years. I reopened the list of strategic consulting firms signed in the last 18 months. There were 6 names, and 4 of them were newly established, no websites, residential addresses, representatives who didn't exist in any reliable database. I knew what I had to do next. I called up someone from the past. Gerald Bain, former systems architect at Aurelian, retired just last year. We met at a quiet cafe in Aurora. Gerald had once been my mentor, and he had warned me before. Digital transformation isn't a scam, but it's often used as an excuse to burn money, or worse, to split the pot. I handed him a dossier, printed from the data I'd extracted. Gerald looked at me for a long moment. "You're telling me Leo created a network of fake companies to siphon money from Aurelian and no one noticed?" I nodded. "You've got evidence of the transactions?" "Yes." "Improper approvals?" "Yes." "Internal logins and authorizations?" "All of them." Gerald exhaled deeply. "You realize, Ellis, if you're right, you're not just going up against a CEO. You're up against the board backing him." I knew. But if I didn't act, who would? That night, I installed a new counter-surveillance system. Every action I took was now recorded, encrypted, and stored in 3 separate locations: an external drive, a private server, and a secure cloud vault in Switzerland under a proxy identity. I created a new anonymous account, ellis.proxy@protonmail.com, and sent a single email to one man, Harrison Cole, an independent board member and former national cybersecurity chief. I wrote just one line: "You need to look into payment, CR 2219, and the Helix Point contract. There's something you won't want to overlook." Attached was a PDF file. No further explanation. I knew how to trigger a reaction from someone like Harrison, not with accusations, but with a bullet heavy enough to make them open the safe. The name erased from the org chart. I logged into the internal organizational chart system, powered by Org Map 360, the software managing every department structure, from executives to junior developers. I typed in my name. No matching results found for Ellis Grant. I rechecked through managerial roles, core engineering groups, past project teams. Nothing. My name had been entirely removed from the system. This wasn't a glitch. It was intentional. Erasing someone from the org chart isn't just firing them. It's legitimizing someone else's presence. I examined the role map, the access tree, and discovered something even more disturbing. My position had been replaced by a ghost account named core.admin.aurelian01, granted full privileges but assigned to no actual person. I traced the creation of the account. It was made by Javier Kent, the head of internal audit, the same man who had signed off on all those fraudulent invoices. I logged and encrypted everything using my personal cipher tools, then checked Leo's meeting schedule. A calendar entry from his executive assistant showed an upcoming session next Wednesday titled Phase 2 Restructuring, Removal of Redundant Roles. Redundant? I wasn't redundant. I was the only one who truly understood how this system operated and where its blind spots lay. I sent a short anonymous email to Madeline Stroud, the CFO. "Madeline, you should recheck the Helix Point payments since May. Someone is approving them under your name, and it will become evidence against you if an investigation begins." I didn't expect a reply. I just wanted to plant doubt. Next, I submitted an anonymous package to the legal compliance team containing full access logs from core.admin.aurelian.01 and a map of unauthorized system edits. And then I waited. 3 days later, word came down. 2 in-house legal advisors had abruptly resigned without public explanation. That's when I knew the system had begun to react. The retaliation network. I spent all of Saturday and Sunday building a fully independent system, a second surveillance network, untethered from any known Aurelian infrastructure. I named it Recurve. Recurve was an upgraded version of the Shadow Protocol, but instead of just recording behavior, it could analyze in real time, model financial activity based on access history, and most critically, predict the next move. I wasn't using it to monitor ordinary employees. I was using it to track those who had forced me out of the game. Recurve displayed a dynamic network map, with access nodes from Leo, Javier, and Madeline lighting up continuously. Each node represented a behavior chain. Each chain plotted a probability graph. Based on what I saw, a large fund transfer was going to happen within 72 hours. I set a data trap, a fake report embedded with a legitimate identifier but an obviously false value. The goal? If someone approved it, I'd know. In just 26 hours, that report was approved by user temp19, the same ghost account used before. I immediately locked the file, tagged the behavior, and sent the access logs to a special address I had set up years ago for the board's cybersecurity team, auditwatch@aurelianboard.org, the only place I knew where someone still valued data over influence. That night, I received a reply. We need to meet. Privately, securely, 10 o'clock a.m. tomorrow, Slate and Oak Cafe. No signature, but I knew who it was. Harrison Cole, the independent board member, former National Cybersecurity Director. 10:03 a.m. I walked into Slate and Oak and ordered black coffee. No sugar. Harrison was already seated. No phone, no tablet, just a leather notebook. How certain are you about what you're seeing? He asked without preamble. Over 90%, I replied, but I'll be 100% if I can access the strategic payment system. You're no longer with the company, he reminded me. But the system still uses encryption keys I created, I replied. Harrison closed his eyes for 5 seconds. Then he placed a temporary access badge on the table. You have 48 hours. After that, this ends. I nodded. I only need 36. The 3 a.m. call. 03:08 a.m. The landline rang, a sound unfamiliar in the dead of night. I woke up instantly on the first ring. No one knew that number, except a few very old contacts. I picked up without saying a word. The voice on the other end was gravelly, calm, and firm. Ellis, it's me. Harrison. I said nothing. I waited. Something happened during tonight's special board session. A report was leaked, showing irregular payments to Helix Point. Your name wasn't mentioned, but the format, I recognized it. I smiled faintly. I'm not denying it. At first, they thought it came from someone in finance, but then Leo said bluntly, Ellis Grant is still watching us. And all eyes turned to you. No, but I realized I can't stay neutral anymore. Harrison paused for a few seconds. I'm taking this to the full board, but I need all your evidence, in a form they can't dismiss, can't deflect, can't ignore. I have it, but I'll only share it if you agree to protect my people. Stephen? I nodded, even though he couldn't see. Done. He won't be touched. I stayed up until sunrise, organizing every piece of data, access logs, shell companies, payment trails, approval chains, relationship maps, all packed into an encrypted folder named Obsidian Ledge. I made 3 backup copies, one on a secure external drive, one in a Zurich-based encrypted cloud vault, and one on a time-locked mail server, programmed to send automatically if I failed to log in for 72 hours. At 9 o'clock a.m., I sent the full package to Harrison with a single note. Use it at the right time, and use it right. 20 minutes later, he replied, Emergency session scheduled for Wednesday night. Be ready. The auto-triggered email day, Wednesday, the day of the board's emergency meeting. I woke at 5 o'clock a.m. No coffee, no internet, just a thick printed dossier nearly 200 pages long, sitting in front of me. Everything was ready. I powered up a private laptop, a one-time use device running a stripped-down Linux build. No identifiers, no auto connections. At exactly 8:30 a.m., it would send a pre-scheduled email. Recipients, all 9 board members. Subject, urgent. Internal data on financial fraud, strictly confidential. Attached, the Obsidian Ledge report, including SHA 512 validation hashes and a third-party verification document. I didn't need to press send. The system would handle it. I just had to wait. 8:29:57. A signal pinged from the secure server. 8:30 tug. The email was released. No turning back. 8:42. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. 8:51. A new email came in from Harrison. Received. Presenting now. Strong reactions. Will update. 9:37. A message from Stephen. Police just arrived. Javier was escorted out of the boardroom. Leo is missing. Several admin accounts were just locked. What the hell is going on? I didn't respond. 10:04. Another call. This time from Madeline Stroud herself. Ellis, I know what you're doing, but we can talk. In person. Too late, Madeline. I warned you before. You chose to trust Leo. You could still cancel the next email. We can negotiate. There is no next email, I replied. Only consequences now. 11:15 a.m. News began leaking online. A few financial outlets ran with headlines like, Aurelian Dynamics under internal investigation for irregular spending. CEO missing. I looked at the screen. No satisfaction, no fury, just peace. The ones hung out to dry. That same afternoon, Aurelian released an official press statement. Effective immediately, several individuals have been suspended pending an internal investigation into potential financial misconduct. No names were listed, but inside the company, everyone knew who it was. Leo Trask, CEO. Javier Kent, Head of Internal Audit. Madeline Stroud, CFO. All three had their access revoked. They were escorted out of the building by private security. No handcuffs, but it was an arrest in everything but name. I received a message from Harrison. We need you present at Friday's closed-door session, full security guaranteed. I didn't reply immediately. I needed a night to think. Andrea, my wife, watched me during dinner. You've come this far, she said. What do you want now? I stayed quiet. Then I said, not revenge, not credit, just for people to understand that silence isn't the same as innocence. Friday. I stepped into the boardroom for the first time in my life. No employee badge, no title, just Ellis Grant, a name once erased from the system, now returned as a line of code they couldn't delete. Harrison opened the session. Ladies and gentlemen, the man in front of you is the only person with a complete internal record of our systems, data none of us could access. Without him, we wouldn't know how much we've lost or who was taking it. I spoke for 22 minutes. No slides, no drama, just the truth, encrypted. When I finished, no one asked questions, just nods, heavy ones. At the end, Harrison pulled me aside. We'd like you to come back. Not to your old role, but to one we've never had before. What role? I asked. Chief Integrity Architect. You'd oversee all data and transaction infrastructure with independent veto power over executive actions. I didn't accept on the spot, but I didn't say no either. Give me time, I replied. The door reopened on my terms. I returned to Aurelian headquarters on a Monday morning. The air was crisp, a light breeze. I wore an old coat, the last remnant of my early days with the company. The front desk security guard paused when he saw me, then recognized me and gave a respectful nod. Welcome back, Mr. Grant. I nodded and walked straight to the 22nd floor, once the technical division, now renamed the Integrity Operations Center. My new office wasn't large, not luxurious, but it had a window view of the Rockies. Below, the new monitoring dashboard, giving me live oversight of every data access point across the company. A new system, a new protocol, a role that had never existed, created only because someone had the patience not to remain silent. I didn't call anyone from the old team, but Stephen was the first to enter my office that morning, holding a hot cup of coffee, eyes filled with respect. I guess you're the reason this company hasn't been gutted and sold. I smiled. No, I'm just the reason they had to start looking at what they once ignored. 3 months later, every transaction over $100,000 passed through my office for cryptographic verification. Every new system rollout had to prove its data was clean, legitimate. I no longer wrote code. I guarded the gate. One weekend evening, Andrea stood at the door as I packed up my laptop. First time in years, she said. I've seen you not conflicted. I answered, because now, if that door ever closes again, it'll be because I chose to shut it, not because someone else slammed it on me. As I left that evening, someone had carved a small message into the corner of the system board, using an old-school cipher only veteran engineers would recognize. Integrity doesn't need power, just good memory. I didn't erase it. I left it there. A living firewall for whoever comes next.